You're listening to a bonus episode of The Dairy Edge featuring Teagasc's weekly Let's Talk Dairy webinar series, which is also available as a podcast.
Good morning, everybody. You're very welcome to this week's Let's Talk Dairy webinar. We're joined this morning actually by a previous host. We have George Ramsbottom back with us for one day only, I think, George, talking about the Climate Advisory Programme. So George is just on maybe for the next 15 minutes to give us an explanation in terms of the background about the programme, and I suppose more importantly, you as listeners, how do you get involved and the benefits from your own point of view. So we're delighted to have you on, George.
Thanks, James. Jeez, James, I tell you, the wheels have fallen off the cart in the last 100 days since I jumped ship when I hear our Western correspondent talking about drought in the west of Ireland.
It was on there for 6 or 7 weeks.
What are you doing?
Looking for rain, I think. So we have you on the other side of the table today, George. I suppose.
On the one side of the table, yeah.
I suppose.
I'm on the Signpost Programme, James. This is not Climate Programme. It's a Signpost Advisory Programme. Let's get the facts right first before we start.
Apologies. So I suppose explain a little bit, George, about the thinking behind the programme, maybe where the idea has come from and what you are trying to achieve.
Okay, so I suppose there's a fairly ambitious target there to hit gaseous emissions reductions of around 25% in the kind of greenhouse gas that agriculture is producing. And I said, Jane, this is an interesting sort of a programme. It's going to be a fair challenge now to turn this ship around and keep farmers profitable and in production at the same time. So I'm going to have a go with this anyway and see how it will work out for us. So I applied for the programme anyway, and I was lucky enough to be successful in getting it. And what I'm doing is I'm leading a team of just over 20 advisors. They're all dedicated to this programme. We've kicked off in early June after BIS was over. A lot of them are fairly experienced in the job and have been around a while and know how to work with and influence farmers. So it's been a busy 100 days. I thought I'd missed the dairy, and I haven't had a minute to miss the dairy, to be honest with you. And I love the job I had, and I love the job I've gone into now. It's just great. It's really exciting. So I suppose why do we need to change? I suppose it's probably the right thing to do from an environmental perspective. I suppose the customers are demanding it. Legislation is in place to try and force us or push us down this road. And I suppose that I'm focusing on is profitable and economic for farmers to do as well. So there's a whole heap of reasons why we should go this route. The team is in place and we're ready to move on this now as well, James. You know.
And I suppose that in terms of, as you say, in terms of the need, tell us a little bit. I seen these were very busy the other day in Teagasc Moor Park. I think there was big numbers of farms signed up. But maybe explain to us a little bit I'm a dairy farmer in terms of what exactly do I need to get involved, George, or how do I get involved?
Yeah. So you're a dairy or a dry stock farmer and you want to engage in the programme. So there's a couple of steps. The first is you apply. It's as simple as that. The handiest way to apply is to go online and complete an online application form. Now we have we've hundreds and hundreds of applications in already online. Some of them have been dealt with. And tomorrow afternoon, I'm sitting down and I'm pulling out the whole series of applications that are there, and I'm divvying them up to the regions to make sure that everyone who applied in the last number of weeks or month or so is being contacted in the next week to 10 days. That's the first thing. So you apply. The second thing you're going to do then is you'll be invited to attend a workshop. And for some people it'll be face to face, but for most people, because we've an ambitious target to achieve of 50,000 engagements. So for most people, it'll mean attending a workshop. And at the workshop, you learn what your carbon number is. And that's the emissions from your farm based on the activities that you're carrying out on that farm. Where the data is coming from, it's been generated through a program called AgNav. AgNav has been developed by a guy called Jonathan Heron, who was at the Moor Park Open Day. But it's developed in conjunction between ourselves in Teagasc, but also with ICBF. We're getting numbers from ICBF, and we're getting numbers from the Board BA Sustainability Survey that they carry out on an 18-month basis. So there's a lot of data going in behind this. So the second thing you do is you learn your number. You know what your carbon emissions are.
And that's something, George, I suppose that all dairy farmers they've been involved in the process in terms of knowing their carbon figure within the farm gate. for the last number of years in terms of through the Board B audit. So it's not that you're ultimately fit to pull that figure in. It isn't that the farmer needs to gather an awful lot of data for you in terms of to participate with this, is it?
So we had a couple of hundred people came to us and interacted with us at Moore Park on Tuesday, the 4th of July. And for everyone that was there, they went away, when they came to us, sat down on the plot, we put them into the system, and we were able to generate a carbon number, a carbon figure for their farm. Basically, what we do is, we call it a carbon figure. What we're doing is we're converting all of the gaseous emissions from your farm into a carbon dioxide equivalent, and letting you know what the tonnage is for your farm. And by and large, we're dealing with very good people that day, and the carbon figures were pretty efficient on a per kilo basis. By and large, yeah, with a few people. A couple came to me. There was two friends, and we were figuring out which of them was the better farmer. But they were still talking at the end of the day.
You're already adding a little bit of competition.
Oh yeah.
In terms of that process, then, and maybe we'll come on to in terms of how your advisors on the ground are going to deal with farmers directly. But that process on the day, how long does that take to complete?
Yeah, so look at the second step anyway. The second step is to learn your number, figure out what your carbon emissions are, and the third step then will be to create a plan from that. So typically what's happening is, it'll be, at the moment it's going after the workshops that take place, that the advisor will have a go with you at creating a tailor-made plan, maybe pick out the 3 or 4 activities that are going to have the biggest impact on reducing your carbon emissions on your farm early on. And then there's a bit of support there by the advisor for up to 3 years to ensure that the targets and activities or plans that you set in place, technology you want to adopt, whether it's protected urea, incorporating clover, improving soil fertility, you get a bit of support over the next couple of years to ensure that those activities happen. And finally, the last thing we're going to do is we're going to report on the progress that's been made, because it's very important. We're the one industry, we have a great industry. We're the one industry that has a fairly good plan in place to tackle the emissions targets that have been set for them, a very clear plan. And I want to report on the progress that farmers are making, because it's important that the wider population knows the sincerity and focus that farmers have on improving the situation in terms of gaseous emissions from their farms.
Yeah, absolutely. As always, folks, if you have any questions for George, do pop them in the chat box. We have one there, which we will come to. Pop them in the chat box, and before we let George go, we will we'll get him maybe to try and answer a few of those. You mentioned that in terms of the reporting, and I suppose one thing which I know some farmers have been asking, they get involved in the programme, George, they know their figure. As you said, there's an individual plan then put in place.
Yeah.
Explain AgNav a little bit in the fact that is it fit to actually show the improvements from a carbon footprint point of view if different technologies are put in place, or how exactly does it work?
Yeah. So what we can do with the AgNav at the moment, the AgNav program, it'll tell you first of all what your carbon footprint is. And then there's 3 series of, there's 3 areas then that we can look at. We can look at areas around nitrogen application rates and nitrogen sources. We can look at factors around the grazing season length, and we look at issues around slurry application. And we can give you an estimate based on peer-reviewed research of the impact of those activities on the reduction in emissions that will come from your farm. So over the next number of months and year or so, there'll be a whole series of other actions and technologies added to that list that's available on AgNav, and it'll allow you. So it's early days yet. So it's very, very interesting. People love the interaction with looking at how those technologies changed the carbon footprint on their farm the last day. And I see huge scope for doing more of that in the years to come. And it will change, it will improve over the next number of years.
And as you say, George, all of those technologies are sitting there and have been for the last number of years. So they're there ready to be used on farms. It's not that ultimately we're waiting on technologies. No doubt there'll be further technologies, but there's plenty there sitting ready to be implemented at the moment. Then another question in terms of which cropped up at a recent committee meeting was will there be credit given, I suppose, your target, and we'll speak about maybe the targets in terms of signing up farmers in a moment, targeting to sign up an awful lot of farmers, get them involved, get one-to-one plans done. You're going to track change over time. Are dairy farmers going to get credit for that at a national scale?
I think if we can show progress, it'll sit very well in terms of the intention and in terms of the change that's taking place with the wider population. Absolutely. And no doubt, James, and I've said this, I flagged this a bit, there'll be a few turns in the road too. It won't all be perfect, but look, the longer term is where we're aiming for, and the goal is set for us now. We're going to head in that direction. I'm confident we can achieve it.
Yeah.
But to achieve it, James, we need everyone doing their part, big and small. So, for example, I'm looking at data for emissions from a very large dairy farm, 2 million kilos of carbon dioxide equivalent being produced, and a small suckler farmer in Leitrim, 78 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. So there's a huge difference in scale, but both of them can have a positive role to play, and everyone needs to play their part. So we need a technology adoption or action by people who engage, but we also need a lot of people engaged if we're going to hit the kind of targets we're talking about. And it's up to everyone to get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of targets, what's the plan in terms of the number of farmers you're trying to get involved? As many as possible, you're going to tell them?
There's 130,000 farmers in the country, but we believe we can hit 50,000 farmers. Now, just to put that in context, Teagasc has about 40,000 clients. So we're trying to hit more farmers than we have clients. The service is free to everyone, whether you're a client or a non-client, but we need maximum engagement. I think if we hit 50,000 farmers and we hit a lot of the bigger farmers in that and all the dairy farmers, I think we can achieve the kind of targets that are being set for us, or go a very long way to achieve them. If we're honest about it, James, have we the technology at the moment to hit a 25% reduction if we got full engagement? The answer is no. But we have enough technology there to hit about 17 or 18% at the moment. But there's a couple of new technologies in the pipeline, principally around slurry additives, but more importantly around feed additives, that will get us the rest of the way. Because the big emitter of carbon dioxide equivalent is the greenhouse gas methane. And that's because we're a ruminant nation. We've lots of sheep and lots of cattle compared to many of our contemporaries. That's where the big gaseous emissions are coming from. But we have additives coming that we hope will have a big impact on that and cause significant reduction over the next number of years.
Very good. We have a couple of questions in there, folks, and if there is any more, I suppose. Are you doing any work, I suppose, with farmers using foliar urea is a question, and that actually came up with Deirdre Hennessy on one of the boards the other day.
What'd she say, James? I'm doing the interview again. Yes.
There's no peer-reviewed work as such, but there's studies started and will be more studies starting with regards to that. So that's ultimately what's happening in that space. The other question is, farmer planning on putting in red clover silage after second cut, thinking of burning it off after cutting it. So I suppose they're wondering in terms of it's getting late. Is that still recommended? What's the thoughts?
Getting late for it, James. Would you put it in?
It's getting late in terms of, I know in Ballyhaise there was red clover silage crops put in last year, and it's just in terms of managing those in late season, George, really, isn't it? New reseeds, getting it sprayed, it really will depend on how soon that second cut crop is harvested. Would there be an opportunity to spray there before cutting, actually, to save you a bit of time there, George?
You go in about a week ahead on a crop like that, spray it off. I think I'd go for it, but it's a brilliant crop. The red clover is just great, and it probably has greater potential to fix nitrogen even than white clover has. I've seen a few crops of it now, and hugely impressive what's going on. But you need a couple of things. You need a high pH first, so you're going to need a pH of around 6.7, probably 6.5 to 6.7 for it to ensure survival. And the second thing you're going to need to feed a lot of P and particularly K on that crop. It's a hungry crop for K. So it'll need index 3 for P, and it'll certainly need index 3 for K as well. And it'll need to be fed after it's put in, and fed P and K every month of the year and early next year to make sure that it establishes that you have time, but you want to get moving at it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Nikki and the team had massive interest. It was a very good demo in Moore Park the other day, and there was massive interest in that. I suppose, George, what I want to do is maybe give you, if there's no more questions, give you the last comment on the programme, just maybe a one-liner to listeners and to encourage them to.
Okay. If we're to hit the kind of targets that are being talked about, we need full engagement. We need everyone participating in the programme. The programme is open and it's free of charge. We have a team of dedicated advisors. People say to me, George, why would we go for this? We haven't got the technology there to hit 25% reduction. No, but we have technology there to hit 18% and get those ones going first, and the other ones will follow in their own time. I often think of the thing about when is the best time to plant a tree, and the answer is the best time is always 25 years ago. But when is the next best time? And it's now. And the same applies to this, James. It's the very same. Absolutely.
So look, we're really encouraging farmers to do sign up, get involved. There's a dedicated team of advisors on the ground now. It's in process, folks. So I suppose the most important thing there is sign up, get involved over the coming weeks. As always, George, thanks. Very informative in terms of your new role, which is going to be a busy role over the coming years, and no doubt we'll have you back on to explain how the process is actually going. Next week, folks, we have Joe Patton, head of Dairy KT, who is coming on to discuss some of the key messages after Moore Park 23. So we'll see what were the key themes and key messages for the listeners that maybe didn't get an opportunity to attend. So as always, folks, for the coming week, farm safely, and we'll see you next week.
That's all for this week's bonus episode from the Let's Talk Dairy webinar series, and don't forget to look out for more bonus episodes each week. I'll be back with the usual Dairy Age podcast on Monday, so do listen in then. I'm Stuart Childs, and thanks for listening.